guys, Kyle K. Edward Smith here. Thank you so much for stopping by. Today we're doing another behind the song video where we're talking about some of the stories that went into the writing of a particular tune and some of the behind the scenes stuff. And we're talking about Sleeping Angel today. Now, this song kind of has a special place in my heart. It was recently released on my album Something Beautiful. It's track 6 right there. Originally, this song had been shared as part of a songwriting challenge that I was doing from the summer of 2019 to 2020. And I've shared this story at other places, but for those of you guys who don't know, I started doing this challenge as kind of a way to jumpstart my writing and releasing as a solo artist. I had a bunch of songs that were, kind of taking up space on a hard drive. I wasn't really sharing them with anybody, and I finally said, screw it, I'm gonna do this, So I said every 3 weeks I'm gonna write, record, and release a new song. And it was a really cool experience. It was this really intense writing experience. Now, this was actually the last song that I wrote for the challenge. I had started, in June of the previous year with the song Something to Say. That was the first song I released as a solo artist, and I had been doing this kind of very intense writing experience for the past year, and I knew the end was coming up, and I knew I wanted to say something meaningful with this last song. And not that I don't want to say meaningful things with my other songs, but there was this, with each week in the process, there was this kind of added pressure. So yeah, I'm not somebody who generally goes into my songwriting with like a specific message in mind. Like, I want to write a song that says this. I was honestly around that type of music a lot when I was younger, and it kind of gives me hives. There are people who can pull it off well, but it feels very inauthentic to me. It feels very forced, and I don't like it. I don't like the type of writing that it brings out in me. So generally my ideas towards songwriting is I'll start with some sort of tidbit, like a riff or a line or a picture or something like that, and kind of write around that, get through the first draft, and then chisel away once I figure out kind of what is the running theme here, what is this kind of trying to say, without it being too, like on the nose. So Sleeping Angel started off as a guitar riff. So I'd actually stumbled across it a few weeks prior to when I was due to write the song that ended up being Sleeping Angel. And it wasn't really fitting the song I was currently working on, so I just kind of put it on the back burner and shelved it, let it percolate a little bit. The song I was working on at that time was called Grave Digging Blues. It's going to be coming out on the next release. And it was this kind of, really dark, gloomy thing led by a banjo lick, and this felt a lot more hopeful, a little bit more spacey, a little bit more vibey. Throw whatever buzzword you wanted there. It didn't fit. So I let it sit. I released Grave Digging Blues and sat back down to work on this next song and pull this riff out. And I kind of sat with it for the majority of that week that I was supposed to be writing. I didn't really have the lyric line that was gonna click with it yet. I was still letting it percolate, and I was waiting to stumble across the hook. I just kind of start mumbling through some melody lines. Da, 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 da. Really, really simple stuff. Like, nothing too exciting, but it really fit the vibe of what was going on with the music. Dun, 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 dun. And so I kind of had the melody and the riff, but I was still looking for a line to tie it together, some sort of hook. And I honestly don't remember where the line, "We've all got a sleeping angel somewhere," came into my head. I think we had like we were talking and something about we've all got a, and that fit the first part of the melody. We've all got a dun 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 dun. And then I was like, okay, somewhere. We've all got a dun 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 somewhere. And I was, stuck on those 4 syllables. Yeah, 4 syllables. I just kept playing it over and over and over, and I don't know where the line "Sleeping Angel" came from. It might have been like a TV show or a picture or something in an old notebook. I landed on that, and it clicked. We've all got a sleeping angel somewhere. And so I had direction now, and kind of moved the riff around the guitar a bit to give it a little bit of structure, just, transposed it up a string. And did this cool little walk down thing. And that felt good as kind of a B section to, tie everything together. And then it was on to lyrics. And honestly, this one took me a while. It wasn't anything like, oh, here's this magical moment. It was hard songwriting work. Just, craftsmanship of working it line by line, trying things that worked, and trying to figure out what fit the mood, what fit what I was trying to say. And going through a lot of drafts, a lot of writes and then rewrites. It wasn't necessarily the sexiest process, but the song that came out on the other side of it was really cool and something that it still speaks to me a lot, and that's something cool to see. Part of what took so long to really get the lyrics figured out was it was using this kind of imagery, this kind of haunting thing of this sleeping angel. There's words about like they're outside, you can lock the doors, but they're waiting just outside, and all of this, and they all kind of felt in a vein of a vibe, and I wasn't quite sure what I was going after, and I'm still not quite sure what the song is about, in all honesty. It could be mistaken as a lot of things, and a lot of the imagery I'm pulling in from is, I grew up as a pastor's kid, and so I spent a lot of time in church and stuff like that, and I don't think it's a fairly religious song. It's not an overtly religious song. It's not trying to be. I think it talks a lot more about potential, and that's kind of where my head was at when I was writing this song, and that's just kind of the archetypes that have been lodged in my brain since childhood. And I was at the end of this really intense experience, and I was thinking back over it and comparing where I started and how fearful I was to share my music, to share the songs I was writing, and how difficult it was to even put together a video saying, here's what I'm doing, guys, and just how big it was personally for me to get that first song out there. Comparing that to where I was at now, that's where my head was at a lot for this. And so it's the idea that there is potential in all of us to do these really cool things, and for me, songwriting had been that big thing. When I was younger, I thought songwriting was something that you either had or you didn't, and that's what I believed for a very long time. I was, told that and just kind of implicitly understood that. But that's totally not the case. Songwriting's a skill like anything else, and you can get better at it with practice. You can learn how to do these things. And that was one of my biggest discoveries through the process of this songwriting challenge that I took upon myself to do. I really internalized that for myself, and that's probably what a lot of Sleeping Angel is about, is taking up that potential. And it doesn't have to be songwriting, you know, it's any of these things. We all have things like that in our own lives where we, you know, we have the potential to do things. We just need to have the courage to follow through on them. So the songs ended up being very meaningful and speaks a lot to myself because of it. And I feel like the very honest production of it kind of lends itself to that. The final track is just me and an acoustic guitar singing and playing. We've all got a sleeping angel somewhere. There's this little toy piano that I used on some of my other recordings. I actually picked it up during that year because I thought it'd be cool to have, and it's a unique looking thing. It looks like a pipe organ, and it kind of strikes these little chimey bars. There's some harmonies on the chorus that my good friend and vocal coach Kevin kind of pointed me in the right direction on those. I wasn't even thinking of doing harmonies, and I brought in the song to a vocal lesson, and he's like, we should do some harmonies there. Harmonies would sound really good. And that honestly made the chorus, like it really did. So thank you, Kevin. The last thing I recorded was some organ stuff, and it's me playing, you know, through this cheap old synthesizer. And I didn't want to use a MIDI patch. I wanted to have it actually be me playing. So it's one of the sounds off of this like Casio keyboard you can pick up at a thrift store, set to like cheap church organ or something like that. And it ended up kind of gluing everything together. And the track just has this very solemn yet haunting yet peaceful feel, and that's really cool. So with the release of Something Beautiful, it came time to talk about things like music videos and things like that. And I was really excited about the idea of having somebody else come in and help out with that. I had been doing everything myself up till now, and I'm like, I have the basic ideas, but there are people who are much better at this than me. So I reconnected with an old college buddy of mine. It was actually a roommate named Austin. We had done some, you know, creative projects in college together. We were in a band together, and some of our earliest recordings that are terrible but fun. You know, some of our first bigger studio experiences were at the college studio. And he was in the digital media world, I was in the music world, and so we were in kind of similar creative realms, and we bounced a lot of ideas off of each other in college and worked together. So I give him the call up. He had recently moved back to the Midwest, and I'm like, hey, what do you think about doing some music videos together? And he of course said yes, sounded like fun, and we started talking about what songs we would want to do, and Sleeping Angel came up because it is this very evocative title and kind of lends itself to some specific imagery. And you know, eventually we landed on the idea of doing a shoot in an old church with an organ, because there's that organ part, maybe some stained glass, because it just, you know, kind of a beautiful vibey space. We made phone calls and stuff like that. For a while it sounded like we weren't going to be able to do the shoot anywhere, and eventually we get connected with St. John's in Fort Wayne, which is my hometown, and they very graciously allowed us to use their beautiful building, and I actually got to play their old pipe organ. Which is something that I never thought I was going to be able to do. But they were very gracious and very kind, and we were very respectful of the space and stuff like that. And I just want to say a big shout out to St. John's for letting us do that, and for Pastor Paul and helping make those connections and whatnot. So thank you guys for that. So yeah, the shoot ended up being this really kind of on the seat of our pants, running and gunning type of thing, where we're doing a lot in the space. We didn't necessarily have like a storyline planned out. We had kind of a beginning shot and an ending shot, and everything else was improvised once we got into that space. Austin's outside of Chicago. We didn't have time to, like, you know, kind of do the let's tour the space together and figure out what would be a cool shot. And it ended up being a really cool day of, you know, shooting the video, and I'm very excited with how the video is turning out, and that's going to be coming out in a couple weeks after this video airs, and there'll be a link below that you can check that out. So yeah, Sleeping Angel. It's one of those songs that started out as a very simple guitar riff, kind of got put on the back burner, and you know, a year down the road, it's getting made into a full-fledged music video, and it's very quickly one of my favorites that I've written so far. And that's cool. That's really, really cool. You know, that's some of the stuff that keeps me going with songwriting, is stories like that. Thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to hit that subscribe and like button if you are digging what you're hearing. You can also let me know what you think in the comments below. I love hearing from you guys. I do my best to respond to each and every one of those. If you are digging what you're hearing, you can hit that little bell icon next to the subscribe button, and that'll notify you whenever I have a new video coming out. This includes the Sleeping Angel music video, which should be coming out in a couple weeks. So you can be the first cool kid on the block to watch it before all of your cool hipster friends. I'll update the description below with a link to that video once it's out, so in case you're watching this later, you can find it really easily. If this kind of behind the scenes, behind what's going on behind the curtain, behind the song, work in progress type of video is your jam, I'll post a link to a playlist up here that's regularly updated with more behind the song videos, as well as some work in progress writing demos, some new material that I'm working on. I'm very open and honest with my writing process, and I like sharing where things are at, even if it's early on. So if that type of thing is your jam, be sure to check that out. So thank you guys once again for watching. I really appreciate each and every one of you, and I hope you have a lovely rest of your day. Thanks, guys.